In this fifth and final video for quadratic equations, I'm going to give you a few more problems to practice on your own before watching me solve them. So here's the first one. The length of a rectangular garden is 8 feet more than its width. A walkway 3 feet wide surrounds the outside of the garden. If the total area of the walkway alone is 288 square feet, what are the dimensions of the garden? Certainly, if I were you, I would draw a picture of this first and try to figure out what you want x to equal. If you are unsure of how to go about doing this problem, just continue and watch me as I go through this problem. This might be the way that I would go through and solve this problem, but once again, just because I choose to do it this way doesn't mean that you need to do it this way as well. There are all sorts of different ways of solving this problem, and as long as you have the correct answer and it makes sense, that would be fine. But let me go through what I did. It said in here that I wanted to know what the dimensions of the garden were. So the very first thing I did is I have this inside garden right here, and I said that that would be equal to x, that x is the width of the garden. It says in the problem that the length is 8 feet more than its width. So I have the length of the garden to be x plus 8. It also said that we have a walkway 3 feet wide that surrounds the outside of the garden. So you can see that I have the walkway all in here, and it's 3 feet wide. Well, if it's 3 feet wide, that must mean that the distance from here to here is 3, and the distance from here to here is 3. So that total distance, as you can see that I have on my drawing, from here to here is x plus 6. For the same reason, that must mean that the total distance from here to here, this is x plus 8 right here, but the total distance has to be that x plus 14, x plus 8 plus 6. So you can see that I have still my labeling part that the length of the walkway is x plus 14, and the width of the walkway is x plus 6. It also says in the problem that the total area of the walkway alone is 288 square feet. So if the total area of the walkway is 288 square feet, you can see that I have my equation right here. What I did is I took the entire area of the walkway and the garden, which is x plus 14 times x plus 6, and I subtracted out the area of just the garden. If I take that out, then I'm just going to be left with the area of the walkway, and the area of the walkway is 288 square feet. So this would be an equation that would work for that. And then what I did is I went through and solved that. Now once again, this should be x squared right here, not x2, and this should be x squared right here. There's just a little formatting problem right there. So I went through and figured out what is x plus 14 times x plus 6 using the FOIL method. And then this is x squared subtract 8x as I go through is equal to 288. And then you can see that I went through and just solved that. I actually end up with something that ends up not being a quadratic equation in the end, even though I had to create a quadratic equation in order to solve this. I have 12x plus 84 is equal to 288, so 12x is equal to 204. If that's true, then x has to be equal to 17. So remember that that was the width of the garden, x was 17, and it asked me for the dimensions of the garden. So I have 17 feet is the width and 25 feet is the length. Now once again, you may have gone through and done this problem a completely different way, because there are many different ways to solve the problem. Here's another problem for you to practice before watching me do it. The area of a rectangular poster is 1,400 square centimeters. If the width of the poster is 5 centimeters less than its length, find the dimensions of the poster. Okay, perhaps you've had a chance to go through and do this problem on your own. Let me talk through how I would do this problem. I want to know the dimensions, so I would probably let x equal the width. You could certainly also let x equal the length, but if I let x equal the width, and the width is 5 centimeters less than the length, that would mean that the length would have to be equal to x plus 5. So I have my labeling part, and I know that the area of the poster is 1400 square centimeters. To get the area, I have to multiply the length times the width, so I get x times x plus 5 is equal to 1400. Going through and solving this now, I get x squared plus 5x is equal to 1400, and I have to set one side equal to 0. So I have x squared plus 5x subtract 1400 is equal to 0. If I go through and solve that, I could solve this once again by the quadratic, but it is easy to go through and solve this using the factoring method, letting it equal 0. I would have an x and an x. Because this is a subtraction, one of these has to be addition, one of these has to be subtraction. And I know that 35 times 40 gives me 1400. Now certainly if you were not able to figure that out, you could certainly solve this by using the quadratic as well. But I would have x plus 40, x subtract 35. So in this particular case, if I need to set x plus 40 equal to 0, I would get negative 40. I need to set x minus 35 equal to 0, I would get x is equal to 35. And obviously this particular answer right here, I cannot have a width of a negative 40, so that's not going to work. So my width is 35, and my length would be 5 more than that. My length would be 40. And certainly something that is 35 by 40 does have an area of 1400. Once again, that's the way I would go through and solve that problem. You may have gone through and solved that problem a different way. Here's the last problem that I'll have you do on your own in this particular video before watching me do it. An artist wants to put a frame of uniform width around a 4-foot by 6-foot painting. If he wants the area of the frame to equal the area of the painting, how wide should he make the frame? If I was going to go through and solve this, obviously the very first thing I would do is I would draw a picture. So let's say this is the picture of the painting, and it says that the painting is 4 foot by 6 foot. So I'm going to put that it's 4 foot by 6 foot. And then I want a frame of uniform width to go around that. But I don't know what this distance is. So I'm going to call this x. This is that uniform width going around there. Well, I know that this is 4 by 6 right here, which means that the area of this painting has to be 24 square feet. If he wants the area of the frame to equal the area of the painting, he also wants this area, everything in here, to also be 24 square feet. Or in other words, he wants the entire area, this multiplied by this, to be 48 square feet, because he wants both to be 24. So I need to know, well, what's the distance from here to here? Well, the distance from there to there, the width of this is 2x plus 4. The distance from here to here is 2x plus 6. So, once again, as I go through and set this up, x is the width of the frame. That's what I don't know, and I always like to start off with that labeling part. But I also know that 2x plus 4 is the width of the entire frame and picture, and 2x plus 6 is the length of the entire frame and picture. So this is the width and length of the frame and the picture. My equation would just be 2x plus 4 times 2x plus 6 would have to equal 48, because 24 plus 24 would give me that 48. Then I would go through and FOIL this. 2x plus 4 times 2x plus 6 gives me 4x squared plus 8x plus 12x plus 24, which is equal to 48. And then just going through and solving this, I can combine the 8x plus the 12x. So I have 4x squared plus 20x plus 24 is equal to 48, and now I want to set one side equal to 0, so I'm going to subtract 48 from this side right here, and also subtract 48 from here. So now I have 4x squared plus 20x subtract 24 is equal to 0. Now, if I go through and solve this, once again, it might be easier to go through and solve this. Notice that each one of these is a multiple of 4. So if I wanted to, I could divide everything by 4, and I end up with x squared plus 5x minus 6 is equal to 0. You certainly would not have to go through and do that particular step, but you could if you wanted to. And then I can go through and factor this. I would have x times x, because this is a subtraction. I know one of these has to be addition, one of these has to be subtraction. And then, continuing to factor this, I would end up getting x plus 6, x subtract 1, which would give me that x squared plus 5x subtract 6. If I set both of these equal to 0, I get x plus 6 is equal to 0, so x would equal negative 6. If I set this side equal to 0, x minus 1 is equal to 0, I get x is equal to 1. Once again, it's certainly not possible to have something that has a width of negative 6, so I'm going to discount that particular one, and my correct answer is x is equal to 1, which should be the width of the frame. I have all sorts of problems for you to practice while working on this skill. Please remember that just because I solved a problem a particular way doesn't mean that you have to solve it that way as well. As with all of our other work, if there's anything I can do to help, please let me know.